All right, looks like we're good to go.
We are now live.
Yes.
Let's see if we have anybody in the room. Is there any way to make to give the attendees live microphone? No. Wow. That's I had hoped for a little bit of discussion, but we'll have to do it in a typing manner.
Well, we have options, and good morning, everyone who's listening. We could always decamp to a lounge, and if we go to a lounge, then everybody can be on screen and have their microphones. So if you want to give your presentation, and then we can I can name a lounge, and we can go and hang out there and have an actual conversation if you like.
I would like that if we can pull that off.
Sure, absolutely.
So let's see. Good morning, everyone. I think we'll give everybody just a couple of minutes to gather. They may be coming from other sessions or other meetings. Or it's 9 o'clock. They may still be getting out of bed. Who knows?
I asked people in the chat what they had for breakfast. I'm only getting a few answers, but so far we've had granola bars, oatmeal and coffee, just coffee. I myself had Cheerios and strawberries with soy milk.
Is that in the chat? I don't see that. Let's see.
The chat on the lobby page.
Oh.
So not in our session.
Okay.
And there's Ted. Good morning, Ted.
My wife actually made me eggs for breakfast. It was very sweet of her.
I wish I had a wife or a husband or, somebody to make me eggs. I have cats.
Yeah.
They tend not to do household chores.
Yeah. Well, we take turns making little treats for each other, and she did
That's
that
very
this morning.
nice.
And as I was taking my daughter to school, so I came home to a nice surprise breakfast.
Oh, that's lovely.
So anyway, when do you think we should start?
Now's as good a time as any. We're not going to see the attendees, so they're all just waiting on us.
All right. Good morning, folks. And it's always a little strange not to see you. I do enjoy seeing everyone, but I think more of us get to attend when these events are remote. Now, Shasta, let me just ask you if you can see my screen and
Yes, I
that
can.
I'm sharing the slides.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I'm hoping to have a session today where we can talk a little bit about science. Our plan is to have a presentation here and then move to a lobby where we can all see each other and have a discussion a little bit more, not in person, but a little bit more, at least virtual contact. So I'm Matt Small. I'm the Regional Science Liaison for EPA Region 9. And what that means is that my job is to connect the regional office and all of our partners, that includes all of you, with our Office of Research and Development. And that's why I'm very focused on science, because I'm associated with the Office of Research and Development. I just want to go over a little bit on the EPA Tribal Science Program and give you some examples from Region 9, just to kind of get our brains cranking on science concepts early in the morning. I've uploaded this presentation as a PDF file in the room here, so you can download that. And I will. There's links in here, so you may want to download it and be able to access those links for more information on what I will be presenting. So there's really four main goals for the EPA Tribal Science Program: understanding priority science issues for the tribes, addressing those priority issues to the extent that we can, with collaborative research when we can as well, also with ORD research, promoting partnerships between tribal and EPA scientists, and often that's our regional scientists doing collaborative research, and then sharing our EPA research results and products with the tribe. So we had a meeting in 2019, and I know 2019 seems like a long time ago, but it's been hard to have these kinds of meetings. So I'm pulling data from 2019 discussion that we had in Newport, Oregon. We brought states from Region 9 and tribal members. Excuse me, I need to. And these are some of the issues that were brought up. And I think we could add climate change to this list pretty easily. I'll just go through each of these, and I have a few links and some things that we're working on, and then I'll give also some examples of some research projects and research opportunities for addressing these issues. So let's get into this is item number 1 on the EPA tribal science goals, is priority tribal science issues. So PFAS is the first one on the list, and I know that's very present in everyone's mind. And I'll just mention that I did actually do a presentation on PFAS yesterday, and I've added that PDF file with lots of links to EPA PFAS information. I've added that file to the download options for this room as well. And that covers the EPA PFAS site, some of the actions that we've taken to address PFAS over the past few years. There's also a link here to a document that came out just on Monday, the PFAS Strategic Roadmap, and that's our commitments to action for 2021 through 2024. And it has some specific actions that EPA is planning over the next few years, and it breaks them out by various programs, water and air and land and those kinds of things. So that's an interesting document, and it has some specific commitments. So that's worth taking a look at. Here's a page for Pfas Research. We're doing tons of Pfas research. We're working with a lot of different partners. We're trying to find out how we can destroy or dispose of PFAS. That's probably the biggest question right now. We do know how to remove PFAS from drinking water. We do know how to remediate PFAS, but once we have the PFAS removed from water in activated carbon or maybe on a reverse osmosis layer, we really don't know what to do with it after that, because it's such a long-lived chemical that we don't have very good disposal or destruction options, and it's very hard to incinerate it. So we're doing a lot of research along those lines. I also want to point out that we are hosting an EPA webinar next week on total PFAS analysis, the science, applications, benefits, and challenges. And I think it's going to be a really good session. We have a number of folks from state programs, from EPA, who are working on the front lines with this issue. And we're going to look at 3 different total PFAS analyses that'll help us better understand, instead of just looking at 2 or 30 PFAS, we'll understand better the range of PFAS you might have present in water or at a site. Registration is at this link, and the agenda is at this link. So there's a lot of things going on with PFAS, and please download the PDF file that I put in this room to get more information. Air sensor technology, wildfire smoke applications. We are doing a lot with air sensors. EPA has an air sensor toolbox online, really helpful. A lot of information on testing of air sensors, a lot of good information on how to use and interpret air sensors. There's even online tools for evaluating the data you might get from handheld air sensors. We've created a smoke-ready toolbox for wildfires. Very, very good information about how to be ready for wildfires and what to do for smoke exposure and to reduce potential health impacts. A lot of good information here. Nutrients and harmful algal blooms. We've got HABs research and nutrient research that you can look into. Big issues. I know for a lot of tribes, HABs are a huge issue right now. And I'll talk a little bit about some of the research we're doing in Region 9 to help address those issues. Traditional ecological knowledge, TEK, a continuing issue. And I think nationally, the National Tribal Science Council is the group that's really been working on that issue the most. And this link is to the document that they've created on integration of TEK and environmental decision making. So and if you folks have any questions, I can see the chat. So if you want to type in a question as I'm going along, I'd be happy to answer anything that comes to mind. Just let me know. Tribal exposure scenarios. So this is certainly a big issue, because I think tribal exposure can differ greatly from other areas. And so EPA is moving in a direction to do more cumulative risk assessment and cumulative exposure assessment evaluation. And along those lines, we've hosted tribal listening sessions recently. Last month, we had 2 tribal listening sessions to get input from tribes on how can we better include tribal considerations in those exposure assessments and risk assessments. So we are definitely working to improve tribal exposure issues incorporated in those assessments. Aha, someone has Shasta's shared the recent PFAS recording from YouTube. It's a pretty good. It's in the chat. You may want to watch that later. But as she has warned, there's profanity, or as my 7-year-old would say, there are mommy words in this in this video. But it's a really good video. He injects a lot of humor, but he covers the issues well, I think, and does a pretty balanced job of discussing what's going on with PFAS. Back to the presentation. Another concern was small drinking water systems. And I know there's a lot of concern with small drinking water systems. Arsenic's one of the big ones that we're dealing with. We are doing research with arsenic. We're doing research with PFOA, PFOS, and PFAS in general. And we've collected a lot of the work that we've done into our drinking water treatability database. And this is a really helpful tool. If you're concerned about the quality of your water, you can go in and look at this database. You can get information on how to test your water, and you can get a little bit more information on how you can treat your drinking water and keep it as safe as possible. Climate change. This one I added to the list, but I think it's near and dear to everybody's hearts, probably as much as PFAS. And we are working on a lot of climate change issues, and we actually have a couple of tribal specific websites that you can access on air and climate resources, and then climate and energy resources. And I've been to these websites, and they're pretty good. They're pretty good. Mining. I have to say, we don't have a lot of research on the kind of mining that we're dealing with here in the West in general. We have multiple ongoing cleanups. We're certainly learning about mining through doing cleanups. But I think that's an area where we could potentially do a little bit more research. Most of the research that EPA has done on mining is more open pit mining, coal mining, those kinds of things. In the East, where they just come in and cut the top off a mountain. Pretty wild. We've had some coal mining here, and certainly in the West as well. But that's the majority of research that we've done. So next thing on the list, next thing on the goals for Tribal Science Program is promoting partnerships between tribal and EPA scientists. One of the best tools that I have for making that happen is the program formerly known as RARE. Many of you may have heard of RARE projects before. The program has been renamed to ROAR. It's now the Regional ORD Applied Research Program, and I've been told there's a logo coming with a lion involved. So I'm not quite sure what that's going to look like. But ROAR is the new Regional Research Program, and you can see there's 3 main components to this program. The first one is regional research, and they headquarters provides $2.6 million total, and that's $260K per region. And we compete that here in the regional office. So we have a lot of control over that $260K and what we spend that on. We work with the Deborah Jordan and with the Science Council to evaluate proposals for that money. There's also a couple of nationally competed pots of money. There's one for 800K, and this is the USEPA Strategic Research pot of money. These projects are generally in the 40 to 60K range. They're much smaller. I'll say with the 260K, we usually try to fund 2 to 4 projects, so you can do the math and see how much we spend per project. These are not big pots of money. And then there's the Sustainable and Healthy Communities Research Program, and that's 600K annually, competed nationally again. Now, I have to really caution folks, because this is the question I always get. Funding cannot be given directly to the tribes. As a matter of fact, I don't even get the funding here in Region 9. The funding stays with ORD, and they spend the money on our behalf in collaboration. So the way these projects are structured is that we partner with ORD. So we have an ORD scientist. They manage the money. We propose the project. We collaborate with them on the project. We help direct the project, and we can be partnered with tribes, but we don't get the money. No one, the ORD spends the money on our behalf. We have spent the money with tribally related organizations at times when it made sense. We worked with Dene College, for example, and funded Dene College on one of our projects, but the money cannot go directly to tribes. I apologize about that, but it's the way it's structured. And we would love to partner with you on projects. If you have ideas for projects, contact your EPA colleagues, folks that you work with on your grants or on program issues, or you can contact me directly, and I'm easy to find. Let's see, does Clifford have a question here? Lithium mining and pollution it creates, depending on the process used.
And he had a comment above that as well, talking about what he's concerned about or what he thinks of when he thinks of the Science Council. Review of risk assessments related to TSCA, food additives, drugs, cosmetics, and pesticides. Tribes need help there. People don't appreciate the poisons we willingly digest into our bodies.
Yeah.
And the other is the lithium.
Yeah, and PFAS is in that category too. I mean, we've really invited PFAS into our homes and held it close. And you can find PFAS in the blood of most people in the United States. So, yeah, Clifford, these are huge issues. You know, to the extent that you have some ideas on how we should investigate those for tribal programs, please contact me or your other EPA Region 9 partners and see if we could propose a project. Okay. Here's some examples of some of the collaborative research that we've done in the past and that we're doing now. We're looking at air cleaners and air cleaner use during wildfires, also during the winter for wood stove use. We're looking at the impacts on health and indoor quality. And we're just looking at wildfire issues in general. We have a pretty big set of projects going on and working with HUPA in Northern California. We've worked on floating vegetated islands to help us develop indicators of ecosystem function and look at best management practices for water quality standards. And this certainly is related to HABs and other nutrients, and trying to understand how we can monitor those and maybe even potentially create ways to help remove some of those HABs and nutrients from surface waters. Many of you may know Katie Stewart from our air program. She's worked on looking at air quality and health improvements from stove replacements on the Navajo Nation. Folks were burning coal. A lot of folks are burning coal in wood burning stoves, which is very problematic for indoor air quality. And so we've worked with the Navajo Nation to document the problems there. Katie actually worked with stove manufacturers to get new stove designs that were affordable for the Navajo Nation. And we've helped to get some of those installed with some supplemental environmental program money that we had from the coal mines. This is a great set of projects and has really helped a number of folks improve their health based on improved air quality and still keep their homes warm. So it's that's, I think, a very high impact project that we've had. We also are working on ways to map plumes from leaking underground storage tank sites. I know fuels and storage tanks are a big issue on tribal lands. And so that's the information I wanted to share, and then promote some discussion. I have some other links here. I hope I got all these names correct. I pulled some of these off of websites, and I believe I have the correct names for all the players here. There's also a link to the National Tribal Science Council, EPA National Tribal Science Council website, and the Tribal Environmental Health Research website here. Again, you can download this presentation in the room here. I don't see a download button, but I think that
Yeah, we can't see it from our side because we're in the backstage, but everybody should be able to go to the bottom of the page, and there's a links and documents, and they'll also be available afterwards, so people can go back and that's true for any session. They can go back and watch the recording, and also download any documents. Now we do have a lengthy comment here from Cliff, so I'm gonna translate for Cliff here.
okay,
He's
great.
still waking up, he says. When reading risk assessments, it is easy to accept the methodology and models used to arrive to conclusions. The scientists polluters use can influence studies along with complicit EPA scientists, but I'm not a scientist, so I don't know if what I'm reading has any issues. We need you guys to help us there, to comment if you have concerns regarding the studies. So that's Cliff. I'm going to put that in the way I'm understanding it, which is that we need help being able to interpret scientific studies, their validity, basically do a review of things like who are the scientists working for, what sort of conflicts of interest might there be, what was their sample size, was it a longitudinal study, was it a double blind, that kind of thing. If I'm right, then give me a thumbs up. And there is a little lag. I think there's about a 20-second lag between when we speak and they hear us.
Okay.
So I'm waiting for the thumbs up. But yeah, and just in general, Matt, what do you think about that? Helping people interpret the studies so they know if they're credible.
Yeah, I think that's important, and that's something that I've worked on in the past. I've worked with a variety of folks in several different tribes looking at not only risk assessment information, but also, how do we develop screening levels that often are what drive our decisions for cleanups at sites. And we've looked at ways to incorporate traditional ecological knowledge into those screening levels. And for example, worked with one tribe where we were evaluating installation of a treatment system at an underground storage tank site, and we were going to put in essentially a little miniature incinerator to help us treat the vapors that we were pulling out of the subsurface, and a catalytic converter. But there would be some emissions, and we started looking at those emissions. We started looking at the wind directions. We looked at traffic flow and how much these emissions would add to the concentrations in the local area. And in that process, the tribe said, look, this is a culturally sensitive area. And they didn't really want to discuss what culturally sensitive meant. What were the culturally sensitive activities or aspects of the area? And it became quite difficult to really figure out how to incorporate that in what we were doing. What came out is that because of its cultural sensitivity, there would be young folks as well as older folks and potentially sick folks that were involved in this area. And the way we were doing the risk assessment was more, 9 to 5 workers, and here's a highway, and this is mostly businesses. There's not houses close by. We started treating it more like an area with houses, and we started looking at how we could incorporate that into our standard equations for risk, and we were able to incorporate potentially more sensitive people in the risk assessment, and it changed the way that we applied our risk evaluation to the site. It's not always completely palatable, the final result, but we did what we could within the structure that we have to work with to incorporate the tribal concerns. So I'm just giving that as an example, Clifford, of how we can do things to incorporate aspects of tribal exposure that may not be part of our typical considerations for risk assessments. And that's the kind of thing that it takes a while. I honestly say it was it was a bit of a battle on both sides, and I, at the end, I gained a friend, and I think we came up with a good solution, but it was not an easy thing to do. So you got to keep pushing, and really, sometimes us EPA folks can be pretty thick-headed. So, but don't give up. And I think you're right. We've got to do that.
So there's a couple of other comments. Nina says she wants to know how they vetted the methodology and who reviewed it to make sure it is ethical. And I think that's a really important question. And I also think it's important to, just in general, how do we assure people that the results of the science are trustworthy? Because there's a lot of lack of trust of science and things coming down from the federal government. But Matt, if you like, we can go over to the lounge and we can actually start having this conversation face to face.
I would love to do that.
Okay, so I'm going to put that in the chat. We are going to the lounge, and it's called the Regional Science Lounge. I think that's what I named it. Hold on, let me check.
And how do we find that? Do we go
Yes. So you and I will have to leave and leave the session and go to the lounge tab on the main lobby page.
Okay.
And then enter the Regional Science Roundtable Lounge.
Great.
I'm putting that in the chat. We are going to the Regional Science Roundtable Lounge, everybody, so we can be on camera and we can have a conversation. And so, Matt, if you want to just leave here, I'm gonna hang out for a few minutes, but go back to the main lobby, click on Lounge, and then there's one called Regional Science Roundtable, and click Enter or Join. And then there will be a little video area that you can enter, and that's where everybody should be. You'll find it. It's easy.
No, I'm going there now.
Okay. See you there in a few.